Welcome to another WeConnect session at Westford University College. Today we have an esteemed guest with us, Mr. Robert Mikhael, and he has 20 plus years of pharmaceutical experience, has managed over hundreds of employees. And today we'll be asking a couple of questions to get to know about him and his life and how he has become what he is. Since you have studied from Harvard and you have developed your business knowledge from such a prestigious university, how has Harvard impacted your career success?
So I think the beauty of the experience at a school like the Harvard Business School or any sort of major educational institution is not only the content, right? The content that you learn there, the professors you interact with who are top-notch across the world. It's more so the network that you develop from your colleagues and the students who you share these experiences with. Because for me, it was an invaluable addition to my professional network, right? The people that I interacted with who are now, even though they represented sort of a short interaction in my life, I think extremely, extremely close. They're folks that you can rely on if you run into any challenge or you have any questions or you need any advice. So I think for me, the most impactful outcome of that experience was this network of professionals that I can now call friends.
A lot of students would really find that helpful.
Yeah.
Okay, so my next question is, I know you are working in the pharmaceutical industry. I'd like to know what has motivated you to pursue a career in this pharmaceutical industry, and how has the industry changed over the years?
I was very close to going to medical school. So initially, the plan was to go to medical school and to become a physician. And then, in all honesty, when I thought about it and I sort of sat back and reflected with myself, I said, the motivating force was making an impact and helping people, right? This was for me core to whatever field or whatever industry I wanted to join. So medicine is definitely a way where you can make impact, right? If you become a physician, you'll have a practice, you can be in a hospital, you can help treat a lot of people, you help people feel better. But when I looked at it, I said, well, if I join an industry like pharma, I may have the potential to impact entire populations, right? Because when you're talking medicine, and sort of the objective I had in my mind was I want to be in a position where I can improve access to medicine for a population that may be underserved. I want to try and bring a new medicine to a country that doesn't have it. So for me, this was a lot more potentially impactful and helped drive my decision to sort of make the shift into pharma. Now, the second part of the question with regards to how the industry has changed, pharma is sort of well known for all sorts of organizational changes, right? You have mergers, you have acquisitions, you have companies getting big, companies getting small, trying to refocus. So this is honestly what I've continued to see for these past 20 years and what I expect to see moving forward. You'll have a lot of these changes where you have two companies all of a sudden decide one day, let's merge and become one, right? They become this humongous organization. Then they realize, well, we're a little too big. Let's start to slice off pieces of this business and we make smaller companies, right? So this sort of juggling and musical chairs is really how this industry has evolved. And it goes through different phases, right? It's almost like a pendulum. You have companies that want to be everything to everybody and they want to be able to have a product for anyone. And then companies that say, no, we want to focus in one specific space. We want to be the leaders. We want to be the best at it. And then that same company, in a few years will say, you know what? It's too challenging. Let's go back and start getting some more products. So you get this sort of pendulum effect over time.
So you were looking everything from a bigger perspective.
Bigger perspective, most
Exactly.
definitely.
So since you've been managing over 600 plus employees and across multiple countries, and that's not such a small task, how do you approach the day-to-day activities such as managing the teams and leadership of such a huge plethora of members? How do you go about your day-to-day activities?
So managing a dozen or 100 or 500 colleagues for me is you're not interacting with all your colleagues every single day, right? But they are looking to you for some sort of guidance or direction or something. So I always make sure that I'm modeling the behaviors that I expect to see in everybody. And I make sure I live those behaviors with every interaction that I have with anyone in the organization, just to make sure that, if I speak to you, I'm saying something. If I speak to you, I'm saying the same thing. That if you speak to each other, you'll say, you know what, Robert is pretty consistent. Right? He told me this, yeah, he also told me the same. So I'm modeling that sort of behavior with, everyone I come into contact with, and in any organization, right? There's always some sort of a hierarchy. So as you move up, you have like a team of folks who help sort of manage the folks under them. So that direct leadership team, you call it, they're the ones that I would probably have more regular interaction with. And I just make sure that I give them the space, I sort of empower them to drive their business, to make the decisions that they need to make without any fear of huge repercussion, right? I mean, I give them the ability to say, okay, here's sort of, the criteria when you approach something. Just make sure you're doing 1, 2, 3, 4, and then you decide if you want to do it or not. But just stay within this criteria. Don't go and start to do crazy things. Stay within this relative criteria, this framework, and then you have the ability to decide. So when you empower and trust people, and you live certain behaviors, they're naturally going to look and say, you know what, this is what I should also be doing with my people. And those people say, this is what I should also do. And that's how you get sort of a ripple effect throughout an entire organization. You start with yourself, and you sort of
lead by example.
Lead by example and treat people, obviously, the way you expect them to treat others. Give them the ability and the empowerment to make decisions, and then you let it fly.
Okay, so I'm sure you've faced many challenges over the time of the COVID. So can you share some of the challenges your business must have faced during the pandemic?
COVID was obviously challenging for the world. I think for the healthcare and the pharma industry, it was even more challenging, right? Because suddenly everybody's looking, well, we need help, right? We need something. We need, give us a cure, give us some treatment, give us something, because we're not going to stay in our homes forever, and we need to get back to life and get back to the world. So I think, the challenges, at least for me, were multifaceted. First and foremost, just to make sure that our teams and our colleagues and their families are as safe and secure as possible. And the organizations that I was a part of went above and beyond to try and help secure its colleagues, to make sure that they had basic needs covered, they had sort of whatever necessities, if there was any emergency medical relief that was required. They really went above and beyond to secure the employee population. And then second, in the societies and in the communities in which we work and live, what are we doing to sort of help? Right? It's our responsibility. Right? I've deliberately chosen, and I know a lot of people in the industry have deliberately chosen to be part of this profession for this reason. Right? It's to really see what sort of positive impact we can make on society and the people around us. So how do we balance the safety and security of our colleagues, and how do we sort of ensure we're also giving back to these communities? So it was a very delicate conversation with my team and with the extended organization of, okay, if you guys are comfortable and you're ready to start going back, speaking to these physicians, you're ready to start helping bring some of this medicine to people, you can do it, right? We're not going to force you, but if you're ready to do it, we're going to support you, and we're going to let you do it. On the other side, it was also a time where organizationally the company was going through a major change, and we were trying to bring together and sort of integrate two different teams that didn't really know each other. They never met each other. It was all virtual. We were trying to introduce people virtually and trying to create a culture virtually. And this in and of itself, as you guys probably remember, is a challenge, right? It's hard to create a relationship and create a positive culture and working environment, on a WebEx or a Zoom call, or it's okay in the beginning, but if you know each other, it's fine. But if you've never met each other, and the first time you're meeting each other is through a screen, and you have to keep meeting each other through a screen for over 1.5 years, right? It becomes a challenge. So that was, how do you create a team and how do you drive an organization forward virtually, right? It required all sorts of different skills and different level of creativity, and you know, we would schedule, okay, we're going to have a virtual call, everybody has to have a cup of coffee, and we have a coffee together, right? Everybody has to say cheers, everybody, so little things to try and create some camaraderie, which you would normally do if you're working in the same office. You know, knock on my office and come in, you have a coffee, you tell me how your weekend was. That wasn't there, right? So you had different sort of challenges, some a lot more challenging than others, and some were very, very fundamental to being able to really create a team environment when the organization needed it the most.
It was probably a very difficult situation for especially the pharma industry.
Definitely.
Everybody was working at home, and people in the pharma industry, all the pressure was on them.
Yeah, most definitely. And you had, I mean, you had certain roles that continued to work, right? If you work in a manufacturing facility that producing the medicine, there's no working from home, right? You have to come to the plant. So the whole time, the plant workers, day in and day out, were actually going to the office, right? Because medicine has to keep coming.
But we're glad it's over.
Glad it's over.
So, looking at your vast career, what role models did you have when you were growing and when you wanted to get into the pharma industry? Who do you look up to?
Probably my father. I mean, I looked at my father, and although he never pressured me to go into one area or another, he was always very, very pragmatic, very sort of clear in, you can choose, you can do what you want. Just make sure you're a good person. Right? Make sure you're doing good in this world. And then I've sort of taken that and really embraced it. And everywhere I go, and no matter who I talk to, I tell people I'm a very firm believer of being able to do well in your life by doing good. Right? There are a lot of people, especially in the corporate world, where it's all about, I want to backstab, and I want to do this, and I want to do that, and I want to reach to the top. And okay, a lot of people reach that way, but when you sit back and you reflect and you look at yourself, what do you say about that? I mean, how do you feel that this is how you were able to make it to the top, by stepping on other people, as opposed to trying to lift everybody with you, right? Let's all go up together. So I think for me, it was those conversations that I'd have, with my father early on. I mean, and it's now, my father passed away a number of years ago, but now I found myself having those same conversations with my two young boys. Right? I have two young boys that are 5 and 4 year old, still very young, but still, I have some of these conversations with them, and I always remember in the back of my mind, I was like, oh, yeah, my dad actually mentioned that. My dad actually taught me this. And one of the examples I always give them is, when I was a teenager, I would always, you're playing outside, and before, I mean, nobody had iPhones or iPads or anything, we're talking years ago. You're always playing outside, you're always doing something. And whenever there was anybody who would sort of stop in front of our home, our home is in New York, we lived in New York, anyone would stop in front of our home with like car trouble or needed some help, or my father would be the first one and say, you have to go out there and help them, see what they need. Go out there and help them. I'd be like, come on, Dad, it's summertime, it's vacation, I want to ride my bike, I want to go play some basketball. Can you do it? I said, no, you have to be the one who does it. And he made it a point that no matter what, if you see somebody in need, ask them if they need some help. And without fail, I would go and help folks, if it was changing their tire, if they had, a flat tire, or whatever it was, right? I would help them, and they'd go on their way. Without fail, there wasn't a single incident of me helping people where the very next day, the same people will come back to our house, either give me like a letter of thanks, or, bake a cake, or, do something, right? Just to show like just their gratitude that, you took time out to help them. And my father would remind me, he said, see, now you've helped these folks. Now, if those folks see somebody in need, they're likely going to help them too because you helped them. And if you one day are in need, somebody out there may help you. So this was sort of, a large part of the philosophy that I embrace now, and what I'm trying to push down to my own children as well as anybody that I speak to.
So it's these teachings that take us far in life.
Of course.
I've seen that you're giving a lot of space to the colleagues and everything that you have around yourself, right? So I want to know, how do you always get the best out of your people that you're working around with? And I've seen that on your LinkedIn also, that you've said, got great working space. So how?
a little bit of what we spoke about. The empowerment piece is critically important, right? If people feel that they've got the ability and the power to make a decision, they're going to think twice about that decision and make sure it's the most reasonable decision with the circumstances they have and the information they have at that point in time. If they feel that you're not allowed to do anything, I have to decide, then they sort of approach it, you know what, I'm going to wash my hands, you decide, you tell me what I need to do and I'll just do it, right? They won't have the same level of conviction and connection to the work, to the decision that they're sort of making if they're not directly responsible for it and for its outcome. I never like to sort of punish failure, right? I mean, everybody fails. And failure is a part of life, it's a part of growing, it's a part of everything. If you're sort of creating this culture where people know if they fail at something, it's a humongous problem, you're going to get a team of risk-averse people. Nobody wants to take a chance. Nobody's going to do anything. I'm going to stay here. This is my little box. I'm not going to do anything outside of this box because I don't want to take a chance and have, the boss is going to yell or the boss is going to get angry or anything like that. So yeah, you empower folks, you give them the ability and the space to fail. You make sure that they're learning from this failure and that it's not the end of the world, and that they're growing from it. And I think you just trust that people want to do the right thing, right? I mean, for me, I always say, I'll trust everybody initially until you give me a reason not to, right? So I'll trust that you're coming at this with positive intent. I'll trust that you're doing the right thing, right? Go ahead. I trust that you're going to make the right decision. But if you give me a reason not to trust you, then it's a different conversation. So this is sort of how I've approached all of the teams that I've joined and I've been asked to sort of build or turn around or bring together. Same basic fundamentals.
It's really nice to hear such positive thoughts from your head. Like even like in many different industries going through a lot of challenges, I do see people are like, oh, you shouldn't do that, you shouldn't do this. But I see you're open and you're positive and everything. So it's glad that I'm hearing all of these things.
I think you get more from people by sort of being positive than negative. That's my personal philosophy.
Since after COVID, there's been a lot of revolutionizing innovations in the pharma industry. What do you predict for the future? What innovations could you potentially revolutionize human health?
So probably the biggest innovation that came out of COVID was the vaccine, right? I mean, the vaccine naturally, and the typical development time for any medicine historically within pharma has been 10 to 15 years, right? It takes 10 to 15 years from the time a company identifies a potential molecule to going through all of the tests and the trials and actually having it available to the first patient, 10 to 15 years. So the vaccine came in 10 months. So it sort of revolutionized the way we can potentially develop medicine moving forward. And the specific technology around one of these vaccines, right, the mRNA, again, revolutionary in its application. Now everybody is looking at, well, how else can we use mRNA for cancer, for influenza, for all sorts of diseases, because it was just so new. It's been tried and tested at this point. Let's see what else we can do with it. So I only see more innovations like this coming, and hopefully shorter amount of time. Maybe not 10 months, but not 10 years, right? So I'd like to see things come, somewhere in the middle. Is what I envision.
We had this research project where we were looking at the application of nanotechnology into the pharma industry and how it could help in curing cancer and such, even all the heart tissues.
Sure.
So what do you think about that? Where does the future lead to that?
Definitely. I mean, the applications are endless, right? From artificial intelligence, nanotechnology, robotic surgeries. I mean, there's things that probably we haven't even, nobody's thought of yet, which will be in our lifetimes. Right, so I mean, if we look at something like artificial intelligence, for example, you already have situations today where a radiologist is somebody who reads sort of an X-ray or some sort of a scan of your body, where a radiologist, will look at a scan and say, it's clean, there's nothing. And then they'll put it through an artificial intelligence platform and say, no, here and here, maybe in 3 years this will be cancer. Right? So these sorts of applications were non-existent a few years ago. Right? It's only going to grow from there. Diagnosis will be better, treatments will be better, smart medicine and smart pills, right? Nanotechnology-enabled medicine that'll go in and sort of fight and attack, cancerous cells. All of this stuff is going to be a reality. Or now it seems like it's out of a movie, right? All of this is going to be a reality. And I think the applications are endless, and it's ones that we probably can't even fathom right now. But once we get it, we'll say, wow, how are we not living without this?
It's like the sci-fi movies.
Exactly. I mean, how are we living without this thing in the past?
So I know you have an experience in many different regions for the pharmaceutical industry. So what are the key differences that you must have noticed in the Middle East and the Africa or USA? At
its core, everybody's entitled to medicine. At least this is how I look at it. There shouldn't be a situation where a child born in the US has an advantage over a child born in the Middle East or in Africa or anywhere else. I look at it as sort of like a fundamental right of humanity. Same way you should have clean water, you should have good medicine. This is how I sort of perceive it. So, when you use that as the background of your conversations with people, right? I've spoken to, ministers, heads of governments. I've spoken to a lot of sort of different stakeholders, and when you use that as the background and say, listen, I am genuinely here to try and ensure that this fundamental right is met, automatically everybody listens and obviously wants the same thing. So, even though you may have cultural nuances, differences when I speak to a minister, in India, for example, I have to do something differently than when I go to Kenya, right? Okay, culturally, there may be some nuance, but in the end, all of these people want to ensure the best for their citizens. They want to ensure the best for their children, for their families, for their mothers and fathers. So, I always use that as the backdrop, and it helps facilitate the conversation anywhere I go, right? So irrespective of the country and the culture and whatever it is, that's always my starting point, is that, the access, and there is no reason why somebody born somewhere else should have access to this and your citizens don't.
But you said you had worked in Africa as well, and since like in Africa they do not have like the facilities to provide for like cure and even like the health criteria, so how challenging was it, especially because it's like if you think of Africa, it's like such a backward country.
Not really. I mean, there's definitely challenges everywhere, right? In the emerging markets. And every market sort of has its different set of challenges and its different level of maturity in terms of healthcare and the healthcare landscape. So it's just a matter of understanding what their priority is, right? If somebody is concerned about, tuberculosis, I'm not going to go there and talk to them about cancer or something else, right? I'm going to make sure that we're having the conversation based upon what's top of mind for them and what's sort of the largest burden that they have within their country, and then we work together to see how best to address it. So it's just really understanding the person in front of you, and making sure you're bringing solutions that make sense, that are key to helping that person achieve whatever national objective they've set for themselves, regardless of, they may have a hospital, they don't have a hospital. Those are other conversations that we have, right? I mean, what do we need to do to bring this medicine to you? Can we help you build a warehouse, right? Can we sort of give you information on how to administer this medicine? Can we teach your physicians, right? So there's a lot of ways you can help upskill a country that may not be at the same level of maturity that we see obviously here in the UAE, for example. So there's, it's just understanding the need, understanding the priority, and seeing how you can help fill that gap.
The challenges everywhere.
Everywhere.
So apart from all of your busy schedules,
yeah,
how do you find time for yourself to just relax and rewind?
So during COVID, actually, I went and I got my boating license. So I started to learn how to, captain a boat. And I think for me, going out into the sea is always a fun day, and not necessarily by myself, and it's a great family activity, but it's a lot of fun to sort of disconnect and get out in the water, drop an anchor, jump in the water, have some pizza. It's a good time to disconnect from everything else that's going on. And just 2 days ago, my wife and I started to take ski lessons.
Oh.
So we said neither of us know how to ski, so we started to take ski lessons over in Dubai. And actually today we're gonna have our boys take some introductory lessons.
I actually live over there.
Oh yeah?
Yeah.
So we're gonna have the boys take some ski lessons as well. So it's just it's all about for me, I think, the roles that I've had in recent years, especially with my boys being in the picture, have taken a lot of my time, and a huge demand on sort of my time. In addition to being at home, there's a lot of travel involved and everything. So I was away from home, I think, for a lot of important milestones. So I think for me now, it's gotten to the point where it's time to look at something else that can make me be a lot more present. And the activities that I'm choosing are just that, right? To try and sort of bring us all together and make sure that I'm much more present.
It's really nice to hear that you still bring back your family,
Of
and
course,
apart from all of
course.
your
The family's everything.
Exactly.
Thank
So
you so
before
much.
we end this, I would request you to, what advice would you give your 18-year-old self if
I thought you said it's the last question.
We have plus one question.
Okay, good.
it's a bonus one. So if you were to go back in time, hypothetically, what would you advise your 18-year-old self to get on this long journey ahead?
Probably not to be as scared and apprehensive as I was to come out here, right? To leave sort of the family and come here. It was a humongous risk that I took, right? I was in New York, I was with the family, I was working in a great company in the headquarters and everything, and an opportunity presented itself, and I was back and forth. Do I leave my family? Do I leave everything? Do I just come here? Dubai 18, 19 years ago is not Dubai that it is today, right? It's a different world. It was still great, but it was different than what we see today. So I think, I would have probably told myself, listen, you're only young once. Just take the chance, right? What's the worst that's going to happen? You go for a couple of years. If it doesn't work out, you come back home. But I think for me, it was a lot of overthinking and a lot of sort of critical assessment, and and a large part of that was the family aspect, right? Because family is core to everything that I do. Was I ready to leave my family, right? Leave my parents and leave my sister and leave everybody, all my cousins, and just come out here on my own? So that will probably be the advice I give myself. Just do it.
Nike slogan, you just told it. Okay, thank you, sir. Thank you for coming. It was a wonderful session, and we'll see you again in another WeConnect session.